Who could have known that combining the power of law and burning is going to make Yanfei so powerful, and the only question remains, how will you build her? Besides causing explosions and dropping pyro attacks onto your enemies' heads, the most important thing to help you achieve this havoc are going to be the Scarlet Seals, which are going to power up charge attacks and make their stamina cost cheaper while also increasing the damage as well. And you can gain these seals one by one for each normal attack you do, or you can gain the max amount immediately if you can hit your enemies with either an elemental skill or a burst, and you can have up to 3 of these seals active that will all get consumed the moment you use your charged attack, so making sure you have 3 seals each time you go for the powerful attack is going to be your best strategy. And if that's not enough, both of her passive talents further give you more power if you land these charge attacks, one of which will increase your pyro damage by 5% per each seal that gets consumed, while the other passive will cause an additional explosion that won't cause as much damage as the initial one, but it will still count as a charge attack damage. So it's all about the Scarlet Seal economy and how you will manage it, but to make things even more interesting, after you use your burst attack, you'll get blessed with Brilliance, which is going to provide with a constant supply of seals every 1 second, but in addition to this, your charge attacks will also gain additional damage bonus that's going to be pretty significant. However, all of this comes with a cost, and the moment you switch out this law expert to another teammate, you're going to lose any seals or brilliance you had on her, so this means Yanfei has one of the more selfish playstyles that punish you for ending her combo streak too early. But that's basically all you need to know about her gameplay. Get the max amount of seals, whether that means by using her skill or burst, and then using her charged attack for the max amount of damage is going to be your best bet if you want to wipe out your enemies. But having a mastery over the Scarlet Seals isn't going to be the only thing that keeps her Yanfei's damage going, and we'll need to take a look at her equipment next. Getting the right equipment for Yanfei is pretty straightforward thanks to her elements and playstyle, and when it comes to her weapon selection, one of the most common Catalyst choices will be either the Solar Pearl or Blackleaf Amulet weapons for that much needed critical rate or damage boost, and even if the passives won't be the most reliable thing out there, it's the subset that matters most in these cases. But if we were to take a look at alternative options, the Witsif Catalyst from the Gacha system is a strong contender for nearly any damage dealer out there, and Yanfei is no exception when it comes to this weapon. There's also Eye of Perception, which is another gacha weapon that provides attack percentage from substat and a decent passive that has a nice synergy with their playstyle. But if you're looking for free-to-play options, then Frostbearer is a well-rounded catalyst, and if you're in the early game, you can use a fully refined Twin Nephrite until a better rarity weapon comes along. Speaking of which, any of the 5-star weapons you obtain are going to be amazing for her damage output, with Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds being the top choice, followed by Skyward Atlas and then Memory of Dust. Moving over to her artifacts, there's a couple of choices to go after, and it's always important to keep in mind that while set bonuses are great things to strive for, it's usually the substats that matter more than anything else, and this means that while the full set of Wanderer's Troop is an amazing thing to have activated on Yanfei, since she's all about utilizing her charge attacks, getting this set isn't going to be easy, since you can only obtain these artifact pieces from fighting bosses or opening Spiral Abyss treasure chests. And this means there's a couple of alternatives to consider, one of which is a combination of Crimson Witch and Noblesse Oblige to set bonuses, which will give a nice boost in her overall damage output that you can also mix and match with Gladiators if you're just looking for that raw power boost from a set bonus. Now it's important to mention that the full set of Crimson Witch doesn't really work that well on Yanfei, since she only has a single charge to her elemental skill, and there's a pretty long 9-second cooldown, so utilizing that 4-set bonus doesn't work out in the end. But if you're still interested in powering up her pyro attacks, you could go for the full set of Lava Walkers if you're okay with the idea that slimes and certain few other enemies won't get affected by the extra damage you gain. But aside from these recommended artifact sets, just like with nearly every other damage dealer out there, focus on getting attack percentage on Sans, pyro damage on Goblet, and critical rate or damage on Circlet, while also keeping an eye on substats so that you can get as much of critical rate or damage as possible, while also try to maintain the golden 2-to-1 ratio, and then afterwards, try to get some attack percentage or energy recharge, since she does have a high burst cost she needs to cover. Finally, for her talents, she's all about unleashing her charge attacks, so make sure to level up her normal attack talent first, and then prioritize her burst afterwards. So all in all, Yanfei's equipment build is pretty basic and doesn't require much thinking, since she's not the most complex character we have seen, and going after the usual critical rate and damage stats is what you can expect from an endgame oriented build. But weapons and artifacts isn't the only thing that makes Yanfei strong, and it's time we take a look at her new potential teammates. One thing is very clear about this legal expert, and that would be her selfish playstyle that we have seen in many other characters like Razor, Xiao, or Klee that all have their damage tied to a momentum, and if you don't use it up fully, switching over to a different teammate results in you missing out on some more damage you could have dealt. And with characters like Yanfei, you want to get teammates that provide usefulness even when they're off the field, or if they can at least crowd control your enemies so that you can unleash those pyro skills more easily. So characters like Xingqiu, Xiangling, Fischl, and Albedo are just few examples of someone who can provide their abilities while they're switched out, but then there's also the holy trinity of Bennett, Venti, and Zhongli that you won't regret adding to your team. Now, one of the things that makes Pyro so powerful are the melt and vaporize reactions, which you can easily take advantage of with some team builds that boost up elemental mastery or attack for stronger reaction hits. So an example team of Bennett, then either Kaya or Diona for the reaction, and then finally Sucrose for elemental mastery boost is one of the ways you can go about this, or you could also switch out Cryo with Xingqiu or Mona, and Anemo with Zhongli or the Traveler, especially if you have Archaic Petra set ready to boost those elemental attacks. But it's important to remember that it's all about the Scarlet Seal economy, and how will you manage them during the fights, so make sure to set up your strongest combo attack with her burst as the final finisher, so that when she gains brilliance, you can use it for as long as possible without needing to switch to other teammates. And this becomes even more obvious once you start getting more of her constellations, which basically reward you for using more charged attacks, which in return get boosted by things like the amount of seals you consume, and with a final constellation that increases your seals by 1 more, you can get even less stamina consumed and more damage dealt with nearly every other charged attack you'll be dealing. It's also fascinating to see that her 4th constellation activates a shield, and a pretty big one, that actually gives the much needed survivability if you keep her on the field for a prolonged amount of time. But in essence, Yanfei is going to be acting as your main damage dealer, whether you like it or not, so finding the teammates and artifact combos to support her playstyle is going to be one of the things to focus on if you want to drop those powerful charge attacks onto your enemies. Some like to call Yanfei the budget version of Klee, while others think that she's more like Ningguang, but in the end, it does feel like she has her own identity, and while that does mean she doesn't have the most original gameplay design, there's an exciting part of her where managing the seals and creating awesome combos with her burst, skill, and charge attacks feels rewarding to say the least. Overall, one of the biggest selling points of Yanfei is her element, and having a 4-star Pyro character that's all about elemental attacks only further emphasizes the dominance of Pyro in the game. There's also the fact her charged attacks will stagger your enemies, and with the whole seal mechanic, you won't be using that much stamina, so keeping your enemies at bay is going to be an easy thing to maintain alongside her devastating damage. But if there were some complaints, then it would obviously be her limiting factor of having a selfish playstyle, and that means if you suddenly are low on health and need to switch to someone else, losing that brilliance buff or any active seals is not the most welcome outcome, and things can get even uglier with the high energy cost of her burst, which means working towards getting it unleashed and then prematurely ending brilliance can lead to an unfavorable damage loss. However, if we take everything into account and even include some of the insane constellations she gets to unlock, Yanfei is truly an amazing damage dealer that's going to definitely make a lot of players' lives easier in places like the Spiral Abyss, where Pyro has been dominating since the game has been released. Now, if only we knew how to make as much more as she claims to make from her legal work. Making a video about a character always takes a lot of resources and time, so if any mistakes were made, make sure to check out the pinned comment. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel by hitting the bell notification on, and don't forget to gently press the like button. You can also get more 1.5 news about Genshin by following us on Twitter, link in the description. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.